Akta, so good to see you.
Hi, Eric. Nice to see you.
So I'm thrilled we're getting to talk today. You and I are obviously members of the Rowdy Bonobos, aka the PPE class of 2009. And this means we've had about like once a year email updates to each other. But I think this is the first time we've seen each other since the 5 year reunion.
I know. I can't believe it's been that long. It's crazy.
I know. So look, I'm obviously doing this as to just like sort of reunite the class of 2009, if you will. And I'd love maybe for you to start with like, tell me about your life post graduation. What did you do right after Claremont and where are you today?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, okay. So after Claremont, I was in in Korea for a year on a Fulbright scholarship, teaching English.
Wow.
And then I went to law school out of New York and stayed in New York for about a decade practicing law. Moved to California during COVID and am now in-house counsel at Impossible Foods.
Amazing. I feel like if we were to go back in time and like guess what you would be doing 15 years out, it like Fulbright, top tier law school, law, and now senior counsel at a really impressive company, like kind of tracks. I'd love for you to talk us about your time in Korea. What was
Yeah.
that like?
It was so fun. I mean, it was like the year I had always dreamed about. I think it helped a lot that I had like my future kind of already set up. I was already
Yeah.
accepted into law school and they allowed me to defer, which is amazing. So I
Yeah.
had it all set up and I was really able to like be present and enjoy my year in Korea, which I
Yeah,
think is,
sure.
you can't get that time back. It's so valuable and awesome.
Yeah. Where
Um,
were where were you in Korea?
so I was in Daegu, which is like the third biggest city in Korea. It's not the main city, Seoul, obviously. Fulbright doesn't place people there because it's kind of easy to get people through private programs to teach
Mm,
English there. So they place us like all over Korea. But it's awesome. You go there, you basically get this like 1.5 month intensive like language cultural immersion program at a college campus with like all the other program folks.
yeah.
And then you get scattered throughout Korea. And I lived
Wow.
with a host family
Wow.
who didn't speak any English. So
Oh
I
my
had to like
God.
learn Korean really quickly.
Oh my God.
And then I was teaching English, which I'd never taught anything before. But I was
Wow.
teaching English to these high school girls, and it was so much fun. It was a great
Oh my
time.
God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you must have gotten, I mean, really good at Korean. Are you fluent or were you fluent?
I mean, I was definitely conversational. So I learned a
Wow.
lot that like first month and a half, I learned the basics. And
Yeah.
then I took like Saturday classes to continue it. And then I practiced with my host family. I was
Yeah.
definitely never 100% fluent, but it was enough to get by for sure.
Yeah. What was living with the host family like?
It was such a crazy experience. I feel like it's a weird time in your life to live with another family. Like I hadn't even lived
Sure.
with my own family in so many
Right.
years.
Right. Right.
And then just like the cultural differences, but they were so warm and so accepting. I still like talk to my host, the host daughter is still today.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, and it was really, really fun and allowed me to really get immersed in the culture. Like I went to their farm. They lived in the city, but they had like a pig farm. So I used to go visit
No
their farm
way.
with them and then they would let me participate in all their like cultural celebrations, all their like festivities and stuff. I'd be like
Yeah.
part of the family and it was really fun.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And so you moved there summer of 2009, I guess,
Yeah.
and then you do your 1.5 month intensive. You're in your then you start teaching. Did you do
Yeah.
some traveling while you were over there, or were you like
Oh,
only in Korea?
no, I did a lot of traveling. It was awesome. Kanisha was actually in Seoul at that time as
Yes.
well, or not Seoul, nearby. So I did a lot of traveling with her, and
Yeah.
we did like Southeast Asia. So we did like backpacking in Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam,
Yeah.
and then I did like a bunch of weekend trips to like Taipei, Japan, kind of like nearby
Yeah.
places. It was a great opportunity to be able to like travel in Asia.
That is so amazing. And
Yeah.
also like look, we were a Claremont class of just under 300. For you to have a friend also in
I
Korea
know.
is just so
Yeah,
wild.
Susan Hart was part of my program as well. She was actually
Oh,
in
no
the
kidding.
same city as me, so we got
Oh,
really
you're
close
kidding.
that year. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome.
yeah.
Um, and then you taught at a girls' school in high school?
A high school, girls' school. Yeah, which was
Are yeah.
something else. I mean, it's really interesting. Like It was like the kids were so overworked. They were so
Yeah.
tired all the time, very stressed out. And they kind of viewed my class as like this like opportunity to like relax and have fun, which is
That's
really nice.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So we had a good time.
Are you still in touch with any of your students?
No, I haven't really kept in touch with them,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's a really exciting way to start post CMC. And then you go to New York, you go to Columbia Law School.
Yeah, and then I had to buckle down, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
so it was time to enter reality, and yeah, I went to law school for 3 years at Columbia, and that's a completely different world.
When you went into Columbia, did you have a sense of what you wanted to do law wise?
um, I didn't know that much. I don't have any lawyers in my family. I had done some like summer internships while I was at CMC in like the legal research kind of area, but it was all like public interest work. So I didn't know much about like private practice. So
Yeah.
I'll say like I wasn't really sure. I knew Columbia was kind of a feeder school to private practice,
Yeah.
but I didn't really know going in.
Yeah. And so you have 3 years there. And when you graduate, I'm sure you have a plethora of options, but tell me what you do right after then.
Yeah. So law school's funny. I mean, you kind of get set up your 2L summer with
Yeah.
a summer program that's supposed to lead into your an offer for a
Yeah.
permanent position. So one of my first year summer, I did something really fun because I knew my second year summer I'd have to buckle down and do something
Sure.
silly. So my first year summer, I was in South Africa doing women's rights work
Oh,
in
cool.
immigration rights work. Yeah, so I was in Cape Town for
Wow.
a few months,
Wow.
which was really fun. But I knew that's not what I would be doing long term. And so my second summer, I did the normal track where you like interview. You basically are in a hotel room and you interview with like I don't know 20 different law firms. And
Wow.
then you get offers from the different law firms and you pick the one you want. And, you work there. I was at Sullivan and Cromwell.
Oh,
And
amazing.
yeah, I was excited for the opportunity. It's a great law firm to start off at, great
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to get an offer. So that's where I started.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you were in New York, you made mention for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you like basically became a New Yorker.
I like to think so.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
so.
it's
I
the
think that
place I've
counts.
lived the longest as an adult. So
Yeah. That makes you a New Yorker, I think. So when you were there, did you see other CMCers?
oh yeah, we had a really good group. Yeah, we had, it was like Lauren Reddy, Wendy
Of
Henry was
course.
there for a while, Jeff
Yeah,
Bernowski,
of course.
and then Lauren Wong, as
Oh,
well as
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
Kenesha got there at the
of
end
course.
right before I left, and
Yeah.
so a good group of people.
And while you were there, if I understand correctly, you met your husband.
Yeah, I met my husband when I was in towards the end of my first semester in law school. So
Oh,
kind of
wow.
early on in my time in
Yeah.
New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So we met through a mutual friend. My friend from high school, I went to a boarding school,
Okay.
was my husband's friend in college. So
Okay.
we're all kind of from Illinois, so that's
Yeah.
kind of the connection. I didn't know him in Illinois, but we had like a bunch of mutual friends. And
Yeah.
so she was visiting New York, and I was like, "Hey, let's grab, brunch or something like that." So she brought him along to brunch, and
Oh, amazing.
yeah, I met him there. I was like it was first of all, it was Halloween weekend, so we had
Love
like a
this.
really fun Halloween
Do,
party, and I was
do you remember your Halloween costume?
good question. I don't remember. I have to go check. I'm pretty sure I reused one of my CMC costumes, I feel
Love
like.
that. Love
I
that.
don't remember, and it was also, like, a few weeks before finals, and I was
Hmm.
so stressed out about finals. It was my first
Hmm.
time taking law school finals, and it's a whole different world, and, I felt like I was in so far above my head and, like,
Yeah.
in the water. So I was really focused and, just thinking about like getting through brunch and going to the library. I didn't even really notice his presence very much, but
Yeah.
he caught up with me after finals, so we were able to
I love that.
hang out.
I love that. And then COVID happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
which is, by the way, I was in New York for COVID. It was a horrible place to be.
Yeah. It was,
We were going to meet up for coffee, and then
I
the world shut
know.
down. So disappointing.
I know.
You are where now?
So I'm in Menlo Park, Bay Area, basically, like
Yeah.
30 minutes south of San Francisco. And yeah, I
Yeah.
moved here because of COVID. Um, Basically, when we shut down, I think it was like the second week of March, 20, was it
Yes.
19?
Yeah. It was the March 8th week, Friday the 13th. Yeah.
Right.
2020.
Yes.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
That's right. So I had just had my son 6 months prior, and it was my second week back from mat leave.
Oh my
And so
God.
I was like ready to get back to the office, was
Ah,
excited to get back in the groove. And then everyone was like, stop, like tapering off. And then everyone's office just shut down. And suddenly I was at home with a 6-month-old, and my husband
oh
and I
my
both work full
God.
time. And I was like, we
Oh
had a
my
nanny. I
goodness.
trained her, but she was coming from Queens, and the
Oh my
subways weren't
goodness.
safe.
Oh my
So
goodness.
all of a sudden we were left without childcare and baby and two full-time working parents. And I was like,
Right.
not possible, you know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know a
That's
lot of
so
people were in
hard.
similar situations.
Sure. Yeah. It was hard for everybody, but I feel particularly bad for anyone in New York, because it's like you're also living in a 500 square foot apartment, I'm sure,
Exactly.
with, you, your husband, and a 6-month-old, and that's hard.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, having a child to take care of, like, and being so close at home and having to balance the work stuff. It was a hard time. Hard
Yeah.
time.
It was kind of interesting because I was like first time parenting. I was just like
Yeah.
first time trying to balance like having a kid and working in general, and then plus
Yeah.
COVID, right? It's a lot of
Yeah.
factors.
Yeah. So your son must be 4.5 now
Yeah,
then. Wow.
exactly.
That's like an adult in
Yeah,
my eyes.
yeah. He's like a little man.
Yeah. What are 4.5-year-olds into these days?
Oh my gosh. So dinosaurs are big.
I mean,
Paw
dinosaurs are
Patrol.
classic. Yeah.
I
Oh,
don't know
Paw
if you
Patrol, of course.
yes,
Yeah.
he loves basically like anything that involves like good guys, bad guys, or like a
Uh,
fight.
ah.
Um, yeah. So we read a lot of books about like animals fighting each other.
Love that. Love that. Love that. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And so you're in Menlo Park, and now you're with Impossible Foods. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been at Impossible Foods for about 3.5 years, basically my whole time in California.
Wow.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the work you do?
Yeah, so I'm corporate counsel at Impossible Foods, kind of work on everything corporate governance related, like board, shareholder matters, basically all the nuts and bolts of a corporate entity, I manage our international entities, which is like probably the most fun part of our job because I was an IR major at CMC,
Sure.
IR and PB, but
Of
so it's
course.
really fun to be able to like have international relations as part of my job.
Yeah.
And I get to like travel to different countries that are really fun as part of my job, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like a bunch of corporate transactions and things like that.
So like, look, I obviously know Impossible Foods. I've had the burger.
Yeah.
But I'm like not aware. What should like a layperson know about international relations and Impossible Foods?
I mean, a lot of it is we're a regulated product,
Okay.
and we have to pass, FDA like regulations and authorities in different
Of
countries.
course. Got
So
it.
there is a bit of like government relations aspect to it. I'm not particularly involved in
Sure.
that.
Sure.
But as we expand to different jurisdictions, I'm in charge of like our legal entities and formation and our infrastructure set up in each of those
Yeah.
countries.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Very
Fun to
cool.
be able to work with like people in different cultures and across different, different jurisdictions.
Have you been able to wow anyone with your fluent Korean?
Oh my gosh, no, I don't put that anywhere. I don't claim to know Korean at all.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'm so glad to hear you're doing so well, and I'm so glad to hear about your journey post CMC. But I also, of course, want to go down memory lane
Yeah,
and reminisce.
yeah.
And so, something I've been asking everyone as a part of these sort of interviews is, let's talk about your favorite CMC class. And I know you're allowed multiple answers,
Okay.
but what stood out to you now that we're 15 years out?
You know, I think it was Professor Hurley's philosophy class as part of
Yeah.
PPE. I just feel like we had so many really interesting conversations that like help me how to think, like learn how to think critically. And like,
Mm,
first of all, it was really fun because we would get
right.
into like all these like interesting kind of like touchy subjects, and we would like, have heated conversations with each other.
Yeah.
And it felt like a safe environment to do that, with each
Yeah.
other because we knew each other really well. But it
Yeah.
really helped like set me up into like thinking critically and being able to like have discussions like that, which I think, helped me in law school and in life and in, just like it's a good life skill to have.
Yeah. PP has this like amazing, I mean, you know as well as I do, like the PPE program between the seminars and the tutorials, like I remember going to tutorials against you, let's say, and it was a battle. And
Yeah.
honestly, like I'm actually so grateful for truly like having to go against you because you're brilliant and it makes me feel much more comfortable honestly like if I'm in a workplace situation and
Yeah.
like kind of put on the spot to like respond in the moment,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know. And also like, our PPE class I obviously adore, but like if it's in the seminars, like you want to say something smart, which is also helpful in a workplace context because like the last thing you want to do is speak up at a board meeting or some corporate thing and like sound like an idiot and you haven't done a
Yeah.
reading. So I'm right there with you. That was such a phenomenal class. That was really a
Yeah.
phenomenal class.
Yeah, you're right. I think like that like combination of the tutorial and the seminar is also such a unique experience, and it just like
Yeah.
reinforces everything you learn. It's awesome.
Yeah, and Hurley was such a good like intro for us for that, I
Yeah.
feel. And he had a way of like synthesizing, you know, different big ideas in a
Mhm.
way that like I remember doing reading and seeing a little bit of overlap, but sometimes not getting the full picture of how they connected. And then you would come to class and he like weaved this masterful like worldview, and you're like, oh, I totally get it now.
Yeah.
And that was a truly phenomenal class. Truly phenomenal
Yeah, I
class.
agree. He had a really interesting perspectives, and it was great to
Yeah.
learn from him.
Yeah. Well, I could probably guess who your favorite CMC professor is
You think
then,
so?
but I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll let you
Oh, now I'm
talk to me
curious
about
if I'm
that.
gonna say the person you think. Well, Professor Asher is who I'm gonna say. Is
Oh,
that
interesting.
okay? Is that what you thought? Awesome.
No.
So I got really close to Professor Asher, who's obviously not part of the PPE program.
Right.
Um, but I took a lot of his like government classes, and then he was like my mentor, and like I was his, I guess, like research assistant, and
Yeah.
then he was my thesis advisor as well. And I just became really close with him. I felt like he spent a lot of time one on one with me that I really appreciated. And I just learned both academically and just like a lot of life advice from him that I still like implement to this day.
Yeah.
So I really, really, really enjoyed my relationship with him and think it was like a core part of why CMC was so awesome for me.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your thesis on?
Oh my gosh. Um, so it was on rural, like Adivasis, which are the rural population in parts of India. I don't
Okay.
remember the exact topic. I know I still
Yeah.
get those alerts that people are reading it
Oh my
on,
God.
and I'm like, why are people reading it? I
That's
don't remember
amazing.
anything about it.
Wow.
It stresses me out every time I get those alerts. But
That's so funny.
it was about like economic development in Adivasis in India, and the cool part of it was was able to like travel to India.
Oh
Professor Asher
wow.
like sponsored my like summer travel to India.
Oh my
And I did some
gosh.
research, field research for him, but I also did research for my thesis there as well. So like I interviewed a bunch of people. I'd worked for an NGO previously in this rural part of India, so I went back to them, and then they helped me do a bunch of field research there.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting, and really fun, and it was like just a personal interest of mine that I was able to explore thanks to him.
That's so cool. That is
Yeah.
so cool. I feel like, when I went to grad school, something that I would say very like uh plainly, I guess, I don't know how to put it, is like, "Oh, I'm still in touch with this professor of mine from undergrad." And
Yeah.
people would look at me like I was crazy.
Right.
Or like I would talk about how like I would go over to a professor's house for dinner as if it was like
Yes.
totally nothing. I would say it as if everyone had this experience.
Totally.
And then you just realize that like actually almost no one has this experience.
Yeah.
And you made the comment of like, Asher giving you life advice and you became really close and he sponsored a trip for you
Yeah.
to India. And like, A, I'm obviously so happy to hear this. And B, I'm like, man, Claremont was such a great place, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Such a unique environment. And you're right. Like a lot of people, I think, our school was very small, which helps, but the professors were just so invested in the students, I felt like,
Yeah.
and really like opened their lives up for us to like be a part of, which is
Yeah.
such a unique thing. And I think we're so lucky to have had that experience.
I agree. I also think one of the cool things that I've like observed is, like let's pick on Hurley for a second. We were his first CMC PPE class. And
Yeah.
now he's like the Ward Elliott of PPE, like he's been there. Gosh, I mean, if we were his first class, that's like 17 years ago, I want to say, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when we would have been first semester juniors, right? Maybe 16
Mhm.
years ago. And there's all these people who like we had who maybe older generations have, but also now younger generations have as like legends, like Haley as example,
Yes.
because you were in
Yeah.
IR, Pitney is another guy.
Right.
We could name professors back and forth all day who are really these like legends that we were lucky enough to have. And
Yeah.
also so many other people can share that experience, which is also really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. We're so lucky, and I can't believe that was so long ago, though.
I know. It's terrifying. It's actually terrifying. But for those only listening on Spotify, you look the same, Akta.
You look exactly the same too, Eric.
I don't know that I could grow a beard back in 2005/9, but one's coming out now. Okay, so switching from academia to something maybe a little bit more fun.
Okay.
What was your favorite CMC party?
Ooh. You know, I would say probably the Halloween parties, which is not really
Oh,
CMC, right?
really?
Those are more mud.
Sure.
But, I mean, Halloween's always just been really fun for me, and I still, to this day, enjoy it in a very different way because I have a kid now.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
think there's something about, like, seeing other people's costumes that felt, like, so exciting. I felt like a side of their personality that they don't normally get to express in a different way. I
Yeah.
remember just, like, being so excited walking through and seeing how creative people are with their costumes. And, of course, it was just, like, so fun.
Of course. Do you remember a particular costume, whether it was your own or someone else's?
Yeah, like, our senior year costume, we did, like, pirates and sailors, and we have
Oh,
this, like,
cool.
picture of us right outside of our apartment with, like, our pirates and sailors costume on, and, yeah, it was a good one.
That's amazing. You're not the first person to mention a mud party as
Oh,
their
really?
favorite party. I feel like mudders like knew how to knew how to party quite
They were
well.
always on yeah, they, like, really got into the parties. It was never, like, a lighthearted theme. It was, like, always fully intense, and people got
Yeah,
into it, and it was a
totally.
good time.
Yeah. So then in the same vein of favorite CMC party, what's your favorite, and by the way, multiple answers are allowed. What's your favorite CMC memory?
Favorite CMC memory? I think it was, like, the fountain party after we turned in our thesis.
Yeah, that
There
was a
was
good
something
one.
so euphoric about that, where, like, you
Yeah.
all did this really, really hard thing, and now, like, you're at the end of the tunnel, like, we are about to graduate, like,
Yeah.
we've done the hard stuff, now it's time to have fun,
Yeah.
and there were, like, professors. I remember, was it Professor
Yes.
Elliot?
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember I
He
think he
came
was
by,
a
took
photo with us.
photos.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just like such a typical CMC memory, and it was just like the beginning of a really fun period of time as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just have really, really fond memories of that.
To add on to that, like something that I look back on and I'm like, wait, was this all just a fever dream? Is you hand in your thesis and oh gosh, Elizabeth, who was the registrar?
Oh,
Elizabeth something. I'm forgetting her name. This is going to be embarrassing on the episode, but whatever. Elizabeth Morgan. Elizabeth Morgan.
good
I think that
memory.
was her name. Um, you hand in your thesis, she hands you a bottle of champagne.
Right. Did that actually happen? Because I don't
That,
remember that either, but that's crazy.
that actually happened.
Oh my
And
god.
I'm like, this is where am I going to school? And we're just like hanging out in a fountain all day, like splashing people that go by.
With your bottle
That's
of champagne.
exactly.
Oh my god.
That's a really good memory. That's a really good memory. I
Yeah, it's
have
a good
I
time.
have like uh a solid memory of you and I want to say at um gosh, it was like this is like coming back to academia, but this is like a memory that's like implanted in my brain just to kind of pull things back. We must have just came out of a philosophy class. I actually think it was like intro to philosophy. And I probably said something, super controversial, whatever, and like went with it. And you and I walked back to, I was living in North Quad at the time. So like we probably walked back to my dorm area. You probably lived in North Quad. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we like debated for an extra hour after class.
Really?
And I have this like memory, and it's like, I actually look back on that now. And I think it was about like the death penalty or something like that. And I'm like, man, I was so lucky to go to school with such smart and like really engaged people. And the way that we had fun was like, of course, drinking champagne in a fountain, but also like getting into it on these debates, and like, man, I'm just so grateful for you and for the time we all had at Claremont and what have you. So
yeah, me too. I think you're right. Everyone was just so engaged and like, open-minded and wanting to talk about really exciting, interesting, important issues. And I think to this day, that's what I love about CMCers.
Yeah.
So well-rounded people.
Totally. So this is a good segue. I'd love to ask, who are you still in touch with? And then who do you want to give some shout outs to?
Yeah. So I would say like my closest CMC friends are Wendy Henry and Lauren Reddy. We
Shout out to them
hang
both.
out. We were just in Paris a few months ago on a girls'
Oh my
trip.
goodness. That's amazing. That's awesome.
We have a good time. Definitely want to give them some shout outs.
Yeah.
And then Molly Doyle.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
We just had a second baby. So big shout out to
her. Oh my
her.
gosh. Congrats to Molly. That's amazing.
Yeah. So she lives in the Bay Area as well. So we get to meet up.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's nice. Yeah, so I'm probably closest to them, but definitely keep in touch with a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Abby File a little bit.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Very often.
Shout out to Abby. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I know we sort of like our PPE class does like a once a year email update to each other, which I always enjoy reading. And there's always some like light making fun of and also some good updates. That's so cool. Yeah. That's really cool. Well, keeping in the spirit of reunion and whatnot, I'm asking this question to everybody because I'm hoping to foster, people talking to one another.
Yeah.
Finish this sentence for me. Someone should slide into my DMs to talk about.
Someone should slide into my DMs to talk about. I mean, maybe this is kind of boring, but the first thing that comes to mind is like, I love reading and I'm always looking for like new book recommendations.
Ooh.
So if anyone has any good book recommendations, I would love to hear those.
Currently, can I ask you for a book recommendation?
Yeah. So I'm reading this series right now. I actually don't know the author's name. It's a Japanese author. It's a book called Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Okay. And it's like a bunch of short stories. And it's a series. I'm on the second book about like, you go to this, it's about this like fiction, it's a fictional story. You go to a coffee shop and you can go back in time, but you can't, there are certain rules, like you can't change anything and you only have a certain amount of time and there's only certain people you can see. But, and you have to like have your experience finish and return to the present time before your coffee gets cold. But it's just like a really fun, insightful book, a little bit philosophical, fictional as well, and really enjoying it.
Okay, I love this. Have you read Remarkably Bright Creatures?
Yes, I read
that's
that.
That's by a Claremont grad.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh
I kid you not. So I'll be fully honest. I haven't read it, though it's on my bookshelf. It's like something that I want to read.
It's so
and
good.
I forget, I actually think it was like a CMC update email that was like, so-and-so from class of, I think like 1995, like wrote Remarkably Bright Creatures. And it's like a New York Times bestseller.
That's amazing. I love it. It is
amazing. Book. Yeah.
It's really, I actually recommend that book to a lot of people.
Really?
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. Well, I love that. So slide into your DMs to talk about book recommendations. I'll have to think of one for you. But Akta, this was so much fun catching up. I appreciate you so much coming on the show.
Thank you, Eric. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun. Take care, Akta.
Bye.
Right.